welcome to The Acorn, the podcast that drops a little bit of psychoeducation so you can gain a better understanding of the therapy world and yourself. So without further ado, let's jump into our episode. Hello and welcome to Season 1, Episode 9 of The Acorn. Today we're going to be talking about adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs. Now, three major categories of ACEs are things like abuse, neglect, and or household dysfunction. So when you look back in your childhood, I want you to think about if there are some of these things present. Things like physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, physical neglect, emotional neglect, substance use, and having an incarcerated relative. Now, these kinds of experiences, they can be a major influence on our health. The more cumulative ACEs that children experience, the more adverse effects or negative effects it could have on them in later life. And the research shows that as people's ACE score increases, so does the possibility for negative health outcomes. So what does this mean? It means that as the nervous system is activated and it stays in that state for longer periods of time, things like a person's health can then become affected. So over time, you may find that people whose nervous systems stay activated in this state of like sympathetic or dorsal or ping-ponging between the two, they may suffer from physical illnesses such as things like diabetes, stroke, or heart disease later on in life. Or they may struggle with depression or suicide ideation. They even may try to cope with their stress and tension and trauma by doing things like smoking cigarettes or using drugs or drinking alcohol. Here's the thing, it's not all bad news if you have a higher ACE score, because an ACE score doesn't factor in the myriad of positive experiences that you could have had that would have helped to foster resilience in you. There are many people who've actually experienced adverse situations in their childhood who have thrived in spite of the challenges of their early years. So you cannot change what you don't acknowledge. And all this does when you actually find out your ACE score is it gives you an opportunity to reflect on your childhood and to see if within this season of your life, if there's something that you can do to actually bolster your health. Are there ways that you can calm your nervous system? Are there ways that you can engage with a doctor and work on your physical health? Are there ways that you can be more mindful? Are there activities that you can engage in to really help you to get into ventral vagal? Before you can come up with a strategy though, it's important to understand where you're at. So if you'd like to know your ACE score, hop on over to my website at oakenstreamtherapy.com and you'll find a link to an ACE quiz. Now, as we close out this episode, I want to remind you of the importance of regulating yourself. Please, remember to take a moment in your day to pause, breathe, hope, and heal. Take care. Well, this has been another episode of The Acorn. Remember, the content in these podcast episodes are for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. Disclaimer. Anything said in this podcast should not be considered as treatment, professional consultation, advice, clinical instruction, or assessment, or any other mental health replacement. Listening to this podcast does not create a therapist-client relationship between you and the podcast host. Always seek the advice of your own mental health provider regarding any questions or concerns you may have about your mental health needs. Also, if you need immediate help, contact your mental health provider